September 11th, 10 years ago, this coming Sunday, an event openly used to launch illegal criminal wars to frame innocent countries like Iraq and kill over 1 million of their people. Of course, it was an inside job. The lies about yellow cake and uranium were an inside job. The lies that get us into Vietnam was a staged false flag inside job. Hitler firebombing his own Capitol building to get martial law powers was an inside job. Inside jobs have been used by every major government and every major empire in history when they become corrupt. The U.S. government openly went to Kennedy and said we want to blow up jetliners, bomb D.C. and Miami, and blame it on foreign governments to start World War III, basically. And we even know how to frame patsies. Kennedy said no. We're looking at September 11th tonight. 10 years later, we've got Richard Gage joining us later from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. We have an incredible report that Dykes has worked on for a week, looking at the smoking guns of 9/11 and false flag terror 10 years later. Amazing. And then Darrin McBreen out on the streets of Austin, Texas, showing people video of Building 7 collapsing. You're going to be amazed by what they have to say. That report is coming up as well. It is September 9th, 2011. We're just 2 days short of 10 years since this catalyzing new Pearl Harbor event that Dick Cheney wrote about. He said in PNAC in 2000, we need a big giant terror attack that kills at least 3,000 people. Like Pearl Harbor, it killed 3,000 as well, to be able to launch all these wars and take over Afghanistan and other areas. And they did it. They did it. They did it. And they hope you're naive, and they hope you're too afraid to face the facts so they can continue 10 years later to rebrand Al-Qaeda away from foreign brown-skin threats that they sold through racism to the new rollout where they're saying militias, gun owners, Tea Partiers, white Al-Qaeda. That's in the news. They say white Al-Qaeda. What's white Al-Qaeda? Anybody that doesn't want to give in to the foreign banking takeover, which again is a form of balkanization to make people who aren't white feel like, well, I can't be against the foreign banks. I can't be against the wars. That's white Al-Qaeda. Just incredible information. That's my opening commentary on this because we're teleprompter free news. It's from the heart. It's from research. It's from decades and decades of work that we bring you INFOWARS nightly news. Now, before we get into 9/11, I want to look at some of the aftermath. Before we look at the crime of 9/11, some of the aftermath associated with it. First off, not just in New York, but all over the country, we are seeing checkpoints being set up. And they tell us, oh, it's a special event. Because 9/11 is coming, we're going to have checkpoints on the highways and we're going to search you without a warrant. There's no Fourth Amendment because of a special event. Just like under federal grants, they say, oh, we're going to have a no refusal weekend where we take blood at checkpoints from you, violating your Fourth Amendment under federal grants. Now they're announcing it's just 24/7, 365. So that's how they started. Only sometimes is the Fourth Amendment suspended because the tyrants say so. And only sometimes do we have checkpoints. You see, that's how it's working. And so they are running around saying bag searches, checkpoints in New York amid threat. And they're pulling over taxi drivers, trucks, citizens, searching people's person. Tens of thousands of people a year now in New York. They make you line up and frisk you. Just absolutely incredible. Worse than North Korea, worse than third world countries I've been to in Central America. Continuing, though, where's the real terror threat? I noticed on the holiday a few days ago, on Monday, I noticed that they announced in Phoenix that the police had tried to smuggle plastic explosives through security, real explosives, and onto a plane. But then somehow someone stole the explosives, and they were found on the street a few days later out on a highway. It wasn't about Labor Day or the week leading up to 9/11. This was a typical exercise we do. In fact, we do hundreds of them throughout the year. It was normal for us, acting Phoenix police chief said. Isn't that just special? And you read deeper into the article, it was live explosives. Why would you use that in a drill? Well, on the 7/7 bombings in England, they had a drill of the exact same bus and trains being attacked at the exact same time and location. The exact same trains and exact same bus at the exact same time at the exact same location. BBC reported that. They're very proud of it. So did other TV stations over there. Think about that. They use these drills as the cover to stage attacks. And that way, if the feds or their minions get caught staging an event, they just say, oh, it was part of a drill. Just like Putin's people did in '99 at the 4th apartment building with the FSB, their new KGB, caught planting bombs. They told cops it's part of a drill, flashed their badges, scot-free. They want to stage terror attacks to sell their whole police state takeover of this country. Now, finally, in news, Prince Charles warns of 6th extinction event. And he says that humans are, basically so terrible and so horrible that we're going to cause our own extinction because we're hurting the earth. This is a guy that openly tells old women in England not to take hot baths because of their carbon footprint. He has 2 private trains, more than 20 private aircraft, hundreds of private automobiles, and he himself has more than 16 giant palaces, some of which have over 500 rooms. Just like Al Gore has a bunch of big fancy houses and Lord Rothschild. But he wants you to pay him and Lord Rothschild a carbon tax on breathing, on all human activity. And basically the globalists are just getting us ready for the mass plagues they're going to release and their bioweapons attacks that his father called for. He said he wants to basically release a virus to kill 80% of the world's population. You can actually look up Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, says he wants to kill 80%. You'll get all his public statements in Reuters and books he's written. It's a constant theme. So they're just getting you ready for all the disasters and things they're engineering to say, oh, this happened because there were too many of you. We need some of you to die so we can have more palaces. So just amazing information from Prince Charles. Says that the extinction is about to begin, and we know the globalists are getting their bunkers and things ready so they can launch more and more terror attacks upon us and then pose as the saviors. Now, going to this absolutely amazing report that's a week in the making and 10 years of research, actually more than 10 years. I did say they were going to blow up the World Trade Center and blame it on bin Laden 2 months before 9/11. I said they blame it on their assets. So I guess 2 years, 10 years and 2 months in the making is this special report coming up. And then man on the street watching Building 7 collapse. Here is Aaron Dykes' report. Please get it out to everyone you know.
10 years later, Americans are still struggling with how to remember 9/11. Those patriotic feelings that swelled up in so many after the attacks simply no longer match the world that's grown up around us. Homeland Security, empowered to fight terrorism, has instead been turned against the American people, targeting returning veterans, Tea Partiers, constitutionalists, Federal Reserve activists, and more. The TSA has eviscerated the Fourth Amendment and become increasingly invasive and controversial. Lies, lies, and more lies about WMDs, banker bailouts, and more, as well as perpetual wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, have proven that governments will deceive to get what they want. And now the fact that NATO forces are fighting alongside al-Qaeda in Libya only serves to undermine the official story. But that official story has never meshed with the laws of physics and common sense, and those who would prop up that story for their own agenda have long been at odds with the family members, the rescue workers, and concerned citizens who only want truth and justice. In the years of research, there have been more than 300 smoking guns which blow apart the official story. But in the interest of time, we're going to cover just a few of the most important.
The 9/11 Commission itself was one of the biggest smoking guns surrounding the attacks and the subsequent cover-up. 6 of the 10 Commission members stated their disappointment with the conditions and their doubt about the conclusions. Co-chair Lee Hamilton, who admitted they were set up to fail, Bob Kerrey, who said there was ample reason to suspect there was an alternative to what was outlined in the version. Timothy Romer said, "We were extremely frustrated with the false statements we were getting." John Lehman said, "We purposefully put together a staff that had in a way conflicts of interest. And 9/11 Commissioner Max Cleland resigned after concluding that it was, quote, a national scandal and that the investigation was compromised.
It's a scam. It's absolutely disgusting.
And senior counsel to the 9/11 Commission, John Farmer, wrote an entire book saying how he was shocked at how different the truth was from the way it was described, and that the tapes told a radically different story from what had been told to the public. The 9/11 Commission was nothing more than a whitewash used for political ends. The investigation was heavily compromised and steered through Philip Zelikow, who had close White House ties and limited access to witness and other documents. And the implications of what was omitted from the official story are as damning as they are compelling. Building 7 was the most blatant omission from the 9/11 Commission report of all. It wasn't hit by a plane, yet it had a symmetrical collapse and fell at nearly the speed of gravity. Statements made about Building 7's collapse on television that day and shortly after made clear what had happened.
Building 7 ablaze at the moment and apparently getting ready to collapse.
The excitement and the fun that people get watching an old building being demolished.
It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed.
We don't even know whether this was something that was engineered for safety reasons or it just happened.
I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Emergency responders and firefighters were told the building was going to collapse.
You hear that?
Keep your eye on that building, it'll be coming down.
The building is about to blow up. Move it back.
Back here. All right, guys? Sorry.
We are looking back. There's a building about to blow up. On flame. Debris coming down.
And early reporting was the tell.
BBC World had reported that Building 7 had completely collapsed over 20 minutes before its actual implosion.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has.
As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning.
It then emerged that Aaron Brown